to the show where you don't know if it's part of the show. Welcome to the show. If you don't know, it's part of the show. Didn't they teach you to reach for the stars while opening up the bars and keeping you chained down with mortgage bills and cars? Vaccines for your arms, kids sounding like supercharged, caffeinated hate-filled scars and rage-quit repertoires. No answers for yards, caught up in emotion that's not even yours. Imposter truths like impeccable retards, lined up for your serving of gish galloping wars. No remedy can save the lost, in love with the yarn. I'm tired of walking into refracted shards, poor science displayed by disgusting bards. Soaked in sin with your dupe is delight for a new hand of cards. Been so long, seems like for love I'm just too hard, I'm just too hard. I said, welcome to the show where you don't know if it's part of the show. Welcome to the show. If you don't know, you don't know. Intoxicated hate makes you believe you're spinning in space while you have no shame or grace. It's a disdainful state I used to contemplate, how to save myself from my own self-hate. Wonder why I was even made with a dreadful fate, forced to try and awake with a full plate. No one to help me stay awake or educate. I've had to liberate and fight through hidden gates. But my brother, heaven could never be late, and rockets don't work in space. It's all fake, the show is on Mars. It's a joke, but you're too far gone, it won't be long. Fepe's beak is strong. We have our song and we march along like streams of knowledge leading to God's holy pond, and lives of truth that hits the bong and sings the song, turns mankind from the wrong. We come in peace with a holy gown and all of us wearing our holy crowns. So the earth is flat and we probably just won't get along, just to go along. I said, welcome to the show where you don't know if it's part of the show. Welcome to the show. If you don't know, you don't know.
This is Red Hen Radio. I'm Mark, the better looking one.
He's kidding, folks.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Marc Doxey, one of the contributing hosts of Red Hen Radio. The purpose of this channel is to investigate the truth, be it political, educational, historical, medical or theoretical. Both the topic and guests are not necessarily endorsed by Red Hen Radio. The hosts of this podcast will present information as evenly as possible, allowing the topic to be understood, and all guests will be taken at face value. Thank you for listening, and all we ask is that you like, subscribe, comment and share.
Welcome back to another exciting adventure of Red Hen Radio. I'm your host, Travis Finley. Today's episode is an interview conducted by co-host Marc Doxey, and he is interviewing Marc Stevens of the No State Project on YouTube and marcstevens.net briefly, and you'll hear from Marc himself. But Marc is an author and a radio show host. He's a consultant. He's a voluntarist. He points out that he is not a sovereign citizen, not a free man on the land, or a common law type. Marc says, I'm an anarchist. I reject and work towards getting rid of the violent ruling class. I reject the double standard that it's okay to lie, steal, kill, and cheat others just because you call yourself a government. I'm not against rules. I believe the basic principles of right and wrong apply to all. I think that you'll be challenged by a lot of the stuff that Marc says if you've not come across voluntarism or anarchism before. And so I'm just going to sit back and let Marc interview Marc. There you go.
Can you tell us about yourself for the audience? What do you do?
I have helped people since the late 90s defend themselves in court without having to go to a lawyer and mortgage their house or take out a small loan in order to defeat charges or get a deal that they can live with, which is something we had someone call on the last show to talk about.
I can only speak from the UK education system, but in America, is there any part of the school curriculum where you're taught how to present yourself in court?
No, there is nothing like that, and there's nothing in that. I did not learn anything about logic or philosophy in school.
No, neither did I. And does that put us at a disadvantage then when we go into court?
Yes. Absolutely. You need to know not only how to argue, but because knowing how to argue, well, you also learn and understanding some philosophy. You'll all be able to understand that when someone is not making a good argument.
You also need to know who's who as well, don't you?
Pardon?
You need to know who's who in the court as well. Who's on your side? Who's against you? Who's neutral? My first case in court, this woman in a black gown and wig comes out into the corridor and she shakes my hands. Hello, Mr. Doxey. And then she introduced herself as the Crown Prosecutor. She wasn't my friend, but I shook her hand. I wouldn't have done that if I'd known who she was. But that's because we're not taught who's who and how to conduct ourselves, what to do when we receive a legal document through the post telling us we're being summoned to court. So you're trying to educate people to present themselves and when.
Yeah, how to effectively defend yourself in court against these code violations, and how to properly argue, how to construct an argument, and how to deconstruct somebody else's, and using the time-proven Socratic method to just asking questions to hold the accuser to their burden of proof, so that they can either verify that their position is true, or they will contradict themselves and not be able to.
And when you successfully trip them up, is that game over? Have you won at that point?
You've shown that it's unfair. It doesn't always mean, of course, that they're going to do the right thing and they're going to toss it out. Now, we've had a lot of success, and yes, I've had success in Ireland, of course, which is great. But it's very easy to deconstruct and show somebody's argument is flimsy and doesn't hold any water, is not supported by facts. The difficult part, of course, is being able to maintain professionalism in spite of them not wanting to do the right thing.
When you say maintaining your professionalism, I hear you mention a lot about burden of proof and the Socratic method. Could you clarify that for us, please?
Well, the burden of proof comes from the basic principles of logic, that the one who makes a claim, makes an accusation, bears the burden of proving it. That if they're making an accusation against somebody, then that someone, and this goes back, to, of course, ancient Greece, that who's ever being accused is given a presumption of innocence until the accuser has presented facts that support the proposition, that they have their premises, their facts and logic are in order, and it supports the conclusion or the allegation. And then the burden of... Sorry?
I was going to just... So, and what about the Socratic method? What's that?
The Socratic method is basically dialogue. It's asking questions. I guess they call it a dialectic. And it is where you're asking probing questions to someone who has made a claim as to why they believe what they believe. Why do they believe that X equals Y? What are they basing it on? So instead of trying to counter or argue with them and present a counter argument, which is something that should only be done when someone has gone through and asked questions and can support their argument. So if they do have a valid argument, then it's time for a counter argument. We don't usually encounter that in court because they can't actually support their argument. So we ask questions going really specifically, the way I do it, because we don't have much time, is focused on having them explain how X equals Y and why X equals Y, or their argument, taken basically from the trivium, where you've got your grammar, rhetoric, and logic. So we focused on the logic part to get them to explain, why do you think that this is true? And so the questions are geared towards bringing that out.
So just as an example then, say I ran a red light, nobody got injured, nobody got alarmed, just I wasn't concentrating, and a cop pulls me over and he gives me a ticket. At some point I'm going to get a letter summoning me to court. What would be my first step in defending myself?
He's accusing you of a code violation, of violating a code. And whether you're in Ireland or you're in Scotland, you're in England, or Canada, wherever, it doesn't matter, they're going based on the same presumption that if you're physically in Ireland, then the Constitution and the laws, the code applies and gives them jurisdiction to charge you. And so I focus on that. So their claim is, it's a two-parter. You're physically in Ireland, so the laws apply and you violated them. Well, we focus on on the first part of that, because you can't prove that it was violated until you first prove it applies. So we want to ask, and what I do, and I've done this, with the CPS in England, is asking them, and they'll agree to that. They'll say, so you're operating on the presumption if I'm physically here, then your laws apply. I was, well, yes, of course, that's the way it works. And then I just ask them, so now I know what their premise is, I know what their accusations, I know where, what they're basing it on, so now I can start to deconstruct that and ask them questions on why they think that that's true. Now, I'm not asking necessarily why do you think that that's true, I just, well, what facts do you rely on, if any, that prove your claim that just because I'm physically in Ireland that your code applies? And that's usually where we start getting the contradictions, or we start getting the evasions. They won't actually be able to answer that particular question.
Yeah, and the charge, it mentions where you were when the code violation happened. and what code violation you broke. So it's all part of the same accusation, isn't it?
Right, and that's what we've been able to, and I have admissions on, I have the admissions from England, Australia, New Zealand, all over the U.S. and in Canada. I have all those admissions on my call of shame. So I've actually spoken to CPS in England or police and prosecutors in Canada, and I always get them to confirm what their position is. And the reason why we've had the success in those places, because regardless of the political line, is because it is all being done under the same presumption. I mean, the same thing is going on in Germany. I mean, I've had a big tax case that someone did in Germany. He got that tossed out, which because it's all based on the same thing. If you're physically here, then the laws apply. All right, where's the proof? Other than the gun that you're willing to use to put me in jail, what proof? In fact, I have a Supreme Court Chief Justice here in Arizona. It's on the website. I asked him he said he agreed, yes, if you're here in Arizona, and I was at the time right in front of him at the law school in Tempe, Arizona, and he says, yes, if you are here in Arizona, then yes, the laws apply and there's jurisdiction. And then I follow, okay, well, what facts? And he kind of laughed at that, and he suggested that the facts were because they put other people in prison. And they cut me off at that point, and I had to follow up outside, and I had asked them outside, well, exactly how does forcing other people into prosecutions and into jail, how does that prove that it applies to me? And he just laughed it off, because of course it's a stupid suggestion, but it's because it's the same thing no matter where you go. We're able to challenge it the same way and get the same results.
You interviewed some lawyer, and he came out with the expression "a blunt assertion of power."
Yes, he was a law professor in Canada.
And that's basically, he admitted it, didn't he? That basically is what legislation is.
Yes, he admitted that the application of the law to us is it is neither. It's not based on argument nor evidence. It is literally a blunt assertion of power, like you said. You're quoting him. I mean, and he was a nice guy about it. I was really surprised that he stayed on the line as long as he did. But yeah, that's exactly what it comes down to. And then, of course, you have your whole ethical issue. Like, well, if it's a blunt assertion of power, wouldn't it be ethical or moral of me or self-defense to put down that blunt assertion of power? Who's got the moral right to, the moral right there? And that would be, of course, us. If there are, someone is asserting power so bluntly.
Yeah. We'll nip in and out of the court system that you break down, but there's other things I want to talk to you about. Your radio show is called the No State Project. What does that mean?
Well, because I've been saying for a long time that there is no state. Like you say, for example, here in the United States or in Canada, it would be there was no province. Because a state, or there you've got county. My family's from County Clare. And whether a county is not a physical location, a county is a political body, even in Europe. And so I was saying that there is no state because I realized a long time ago through some research and looking at the facts that a state is a body politic comprised of citizens organized under a government in a certain territory. And I noticed that, hey, there's no duty to protect you. It's even part of the law. Even there in England, in the UK, it's the same thing. There is no duty to protect you, and there couldn't be. And I knew as an anarchist the fact that they're forcing everybody. Nobody in Ireland, for example, ever had a choice on whether there was going to be government. I mean, it was literally a historical fact there. Nobody can dispute it. It was forced on the Irish. And so if the only thing that made up a state or a county where it was the body politic, and the body politic was comprised of citizens owing a duty of allegiance in return for a duty of protection, and there was no duty of protection and couldn't be proven, and actually the opposite could be proven, well, then there are no duties of protection, there are no duties of allegiance, so there are no citizens, and without citizens there couldn't possibly be a body politic, and without a body politic you don't have a state or government. and that whole thing kind of collapsed that way. And so to do a radio show all those years ago, I needed a name, and at the time, the Free State Project was kind of gaining ground, and so I named it the No State Project to be more in line with anarchist philosophy.
Good man. Now that we've touched on anarchy, can you explain anarchy in a couple of sentences?
Sure. From the literal translation of the Greek, which part of my Sicilian line is from Greece, and it means no rulers. And I say on the show, we reject the idea or the philosophy, if you call it that, of having a violent ruling class. That it is wrong to lie, steal, kill, and cheat people just because you call yourself a government. That anarchy is that you do not have a moral right to do that which is immoral.
So would you agree with civil disobedience then?
Yes.
To what extent?
I believe it should be nonviolent because I see violent revolution is not getting anywhere, and history is just full of examples of that. I advocate not paying taxes.
So non-cooperation then.
Nonviolent non-cooperation. Yes, we have to have whatever we're doing. We have to have the moral high ground. That's important. So to me, the means the end has to it has to be consistent with the means, and the means consistent with the end. And so I show that government is inconsistent. That the means is 180 degrees opposed, of course, to the end. If the end is to protect life, liberty, and property, or the pursuit of happiness, and a group of people who are the worst offenders of violating life, liberty, and property, that's why I said that they're a criminal organization, because they're forcing people to pay them, and they are violating the very end of the institution.
At the moment in the UK, we've got this Brexit going on. Are you familiar with it or been following it at all?
Yeah, I think Theresa May just had her ass handed to her again by the EU.
One of my colleagues was saying the other day that we're going to be less free out of Europe than in Europe. And I tried to reason with him. Who is it that's telling you that you can't cross borders or giving you permission to cross borders? So he's a total statist. He lives within a border, and he likes to have his passport so he can cross freely. But I was trying to reason with him that really you are a slave whether you can freely go across a border or not. Where is the border actually? He couldn't get it though. Do you have any sort of quick way of getting people just to stop and think that's how immoral or what a fiction statism is?
Well, you'd explain. Well, I like to get I think it's best and it's logical. We should always be using reason, that we have to start from a point of agreement with somebody if we're going to have a discussion. Even if we're going to have an argument, we should have some point of agreement on certain principles. And I keep it as simple as possible, of course. And I say, look, if I recommend asking politicians and bureaucrats this directly, and the look on their face is priceless. And I said, look, if I was to do things like the government, okay, and I was forcing perfect strangers in the community to give me money, would you consider me a criminal? And universally, people say, well, yes, of course. So, well, then why do you not see that the people, and again, we're connecting this to the borders, as our borders are enforced. Then don't you see that if these men and women, just like you and I, they got the same Irish blood as us, right? That them forcing us to pay is just as criminal. So if you can't get agreement on that, see, what will happen is they'll have to throw up a double standard, like I mentioned before about anarchy, that they have a moral right to do what is immoral. So they have to argue somehow that, and again, they're trying to support the borders, right? They have to argue that given some logic and evidence, facts, that It is that they have a moral right to be immoral, that they have a moral right. It's not just that what they're doing isn't wrong, but they have a right, a moral right to do what is criminal for you and I. And no one to date has ever been able to put forth a rational argument for that. They're the government. How do they become the government?
That was my next question, actually. I was going to say, the divine right of kings. So you're familiar with that?
Oh, of course. That's something that every American child learns, and that it's not valid here, but for some reason they still accept it for Europe.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, well, they had the Glorious Revolution. That's the way it was described, as glorious, about 300 years ago in the UK.
The 1689?
The king lost his head, and then there was the Bill of Rights, and the divine right of kings was abolished. But that divine right went over to Parliament, that not everybody noticed. They have still got, the people who sit in Parliament still have that same power, that they make the rules, and if you don't comply, they will enforce it upon you.
Yeah, you mentioned the revolution and what again, being that I am part Irish, and I'm very proud, happy to be Irish. The Irish people have a long history of disobedience and resistance, and you always have to. You can't mention the glorious revolution without mentioning, of course, what that made Cromwell and his people did to Ireland.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
My
gosh!
Right,
yes. Yeah.
What kind of? It's like you look at the Americans, and you see the hypocrisy on not only that they owned human beings as property and saw, but they were annihilating the native population while they were fighting George. It's like so. Here it's the same thing. How could you talk about the so-called glorious revolution? Okay, when they were their purpose, Cromwell's purpose, he was one of the worst savages against the Irish. I can't think of anyone in modern history, like the last 500 years, who had more of a bloodlust against my own people than Cromwell and the Parliament at the time.
And if we go over to religion, the Irish also suffered under the fist of the Catholic Church as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah, not to the extent that not for those years that Cromwell was in charge until he was finally. But for those years, it's a wonder that any Irish were able to survive that onslaught.
Yeah. So, who is the real enemy today?
I would say it's the ideology that people still have, that there are a group of men and women called government that have a moral right to do what is immoral, a moral right to do what the average man or woman would be considered a criminal for doing. Yeah. And it's that in their head that think that this is a legitimate organization. Not that there's any individual man or woman, if you obviously you look at Xi Jinping, whatever is in China, and you see how many hundreds of millions, of people are going through there, and how the organ harvesting and just that alone is just the stuff of nightmares. But I still believe it's the ideology that drives the behavior that is the biggest problem.
Yeah. I agree with you. It's the guy at the border that's stopping me going across unless I have the right paperwork has a gun in his hand. He believes that the border is there. I don't believe in borders, but the gun is the card that wins in that particular instance. It's his belief that there's a border, and that he has some sort of authority to use the gun if I don't comply to his beliefs.
Yeah, there was the line from the Iron Maiden song, "The Prisoner."
I'm not familiar with that. Go ahead.
Okay, we have to end here. well, he's saying that if I kill you, you call it vengeance. Being that if I kill my oppressor, the oppressor calls it vengeance instead. Of murder. when he's just doing self-defense. It's the ideology. I mean, I know people, right-wing types, Republican types, at least in the United States, the calling card is, the talking point is that leftist ideology is so unbelievably dangerous that it has to be eradicated, or Western civilization will collapse tomorrow. I think that statism, because that is why that border guard feels a moral obligation to kill you if you resist. A moral obligation. He is morally right in going after you, and you may not be exercising any aggression whatsoever. That's not the question. There's no question that he is not engaged in self-defense, and he's morally right. And the people who buy into that theology, if you will, or this philosophy, I hate to even call it that, they will cheerlead him. And they will congratulate him, and he will get the pension, and he will get the raise. Yeah. He will be looked at as the hero, and you will be smeared. It's the ideology. It's the same thing with people who literally read. They take the Quran and they read stuff like that, and actually, or Jews who actually believe that women who are menstruating shouldn't be out of that. This is stuff that continues into modern day. That or these honor killings or whatnot. People who take that stuff and actually put that religious stuff into practice, if you want to call it philosophy. It's that ideology that is driving the behavior. How else do you get somebody to behead a peaceful person? How else do you get somebody to stone to death someone just because they're homosexual? It's the ideology that's driving the behavior.
So we need to teach people, don't we? Get people to just to rethink.
I believe, we have to teach. And I taught my kids this. I teach this every day. You have to be a skeptic. You have to look at the evidence, withhold judgment until there's an investigation. And even if you've done some investigation, you have to realize you may not have all the context. So you may have the facts as you know them, but you may not have enough context. I mean, we were just talking yesterday with the group, and this came up, and you talk about, I don't know if you guys learn this out there, but it's kind of a introductory philosophy thing, is where you have the three blind men, and they're introduced to an elephant, and each gets to feel a different part. And given the context that they have, they're all right. But in a broader context, they're wrong. And I see too often it's people are driven by emotion. And they're not driven by reality. They're not the Orange Cheeto, the Captain Bone Spur, I call him. This guy actually came out. It was like right out of 1984. He actually said in just so many words, "Don't believe what you are seeing and reading." Oh my gosh!
Let's go to another historical book. You mentioned 1984 there, Lysander Spooner. Now, most of our new audience wouldn't know who he was. Can you tell us a bit about him?
Lysander Spooner.
Your hero.
I don't put too many people up on a pedestal. Rory Gallagher? Yeah, you bet. Lysander Spooner was a 19th century American philosopher and abolitionist. He was very, very vocal for many years about the abolition of slavery. Very vocal. And he wrote a number of treatises, and the most popular one, and he was an anarchist, he advocated for no government, and a coercive government, and he wrote a short treatise on, it's called No Treason, the Constitution of No Authority, and using straight logic and reason based on the facts, showed that there never was a legitimate government, because all of them have been criminal organizations, all of them.
All right, let's take a little break from our hard-hitting questions and throw Marc Stevens some softballs with Take It Easy.
Take it easy, take it easy.
So, in your opinion, would you have New York or Phoenix?
Do I prefer New York or Phoenix?
Yeah, yeah.
I prefer Phoenix. It's sunny all year long.
Very good. Would you prefer a workout or a round of golf?
Working out.
No, Geddy Lee or John Entwistle?
Holy crap. Oh my gosh. You might as well throw in Steve Harris into the mix.
No. Only got the two. Geddy Lee or John Entwistle?
Oh my gosh. Forgive me, I'm going to have to say Geddy Lee.
Okay. Well, I've seen Geddy Lee. I've never seen John Entwistle, so I will agree with you on that one.
Well, I've seen John Entwistle. The Ox could play. I mean, he was a big influence on Geddy Lee. There's no doubt there. I mean, but Geddy, Geddy Lee is wow. Yeah, he's right up there with Steve Harris. So
yeah. Oh, here's a food question: a spicy Thai peanut sauce over roasted sweet potatoes and rice, or a bruschetta chicken?
Oh, it's going to be the first one.
Yeah, we'll talk about vegan later on in the show. Here's another one for you. John Bonham or Keith Moon?
Oh, you guys are killing me. I'm going to have to tip it to John Bonham because he was also epic and great even on the studio cuts.
Okay. Ice hockey or basketball?
Hockey.
Passenger or driver?
Driver.
Rory Gallagher or Pete Townsend?
Oh, that's not it. It's Rory, it's son of Cork.
Absolutely, yeah, I would agree on that. Yeah.
In fact, I have a cousin whose husband managed and toured. And he played drums behind Rory for a number of years. So Rory is a god among men.
He is, yeah, and he just loved to play, didn't he? When he was on the stage, you could just see the happiness oozing out of him. He was an amazing guy.
Yeah, and his cousin, she knew him, and he was a lovely person. He was just a good guy, and taken from us far too young. It's extremely rare when somebody. A musician that can connect on such an emotional level, and Rory was one of those rare few.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. Okay, and A Few Good Men or My Cousin Vinny?
Oh man! Oh gosh, that's a tough one. I'm going to have to say A Few Good Men.
Really? Oh right, okay. They were both courtroom dramas. I found My Cousin Vinny very amusing. I could watch it dozens of times.
I've watched both of them, so many times, and it never gets boring. It's a tough one, but definitely My Cousin Vinny is one of my top movies.
Well, you see what I did there, don't you? Well, what do you do during your day job?
Yeah, try to be My Cousin Vinny.
I don't know whether it was you or whether it was him that I read your first book, Adventures in Legal Land. Mentioned about a highwayman. Was it Lysander Spooner, or did you make that comment?
Well, Spooner wrote that, and I was quoting it.
Ah, right. Okay. Can you tell us about the highwayman?
Oh, well, what he does in that part, and this is from No Treason, the Constitution, No Authority. He's saying that, and I'll try to paraphrase the best I can, that the highwayman, unlike the bureaucrat, the politician, takes upon himself, when he robs you, all of the risk. If he's killed, he deserves it, and everybody will applaud the self-defense. Unlike the highwayman, who takes and the highwayman, unlike the bureaucrat, does not pretend that he has a moral right to do what he's doing. The government man, and in contrast, claims to be working on behalf of other people, and that he has a moral right to steal from you. The highwayman, once he robs you, he's gone. He goes and he's got other victims. He leaves you alone if he doesn't kill you. But the government continues on the way and continues to continue robbing you, all the while claiming he has a moral right to do so.
Yeah, the highwayman only attacks you once. You might never see him again, but the government comes knocking on your door once a year. to steal money from you.
For all sorts of things. Council tax. Good God.
Right, Lysander Spooner, before I ever knew of him, I came across, just by accident, I'd left YouTube running and it went on to, it just kept going on to the next, and somebody was reading a booklet called The Law by Frederick Bastiat.
Yeah.
You tell me, you know about that one, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
He blew my mind, because up to that point, I was a God-fearing, honour-bound taxpayer. I thought it was my duty to pay tax, and I did it with pride. But when I heard this, he refers to tax as legal plunder. And I had to argue with myself for a few days as to, that can't be right. But it is right, isn't it? It's just, tax is legal plunder.
Yes, it is by force. It's either pay or get hurt and jailed or killed, and that's why I talk about. And I've mentioned this many times. The only thing as an anarchist I want to see change is the manner in which these services are provided. I'm not going to argue about what services that there are valuable services that people want, such as fire, and there's no debating that.
Yeah.
But if I wrote in Government Indicted, I went through a lot of the psychological stuff here and showed that if we could change one aspect, that instead of taxation and using a prison system and force to get payment, because there are people like you that will continue paying because you saw it, you believe. So so get it to be where the payment is voluntary, and we use a carrot, not a stick, to force people to pay, because that dismantles the ruling class. Because the only thing that keeps the ruling class in place is that they've got this tool called government that is forcing people to continue supporting them. But take that force away, and a lot of the psychological issues that are associated with that force are going to go away. They're not going to be gone completely, but you're going a long way into dismantling why we have the causation, what's causing these problems. Why does the police feel so comfortable beating people? Because it's a hierarchy. He's going to continue getting paid. He is seen as being higher politically than the person he's beating up. He's never going to go grab a judge and beat the hell out of a judge, not if he knows he's a judge. Things don't work that way. There are psychological implications that change people's behavior, and studies have borne this out, like the Milgram experiment, that when you put someone in a perceived position of power and you take personal responsibility away and you have immunity for their actions, they are going to screw things up. They're going to be abusive. Not everyone, but I know a very large majority of them are going to be.
From me hearing Frederick Bastiat, within a couple of weeks I was an anarchist. And I did a lot of research, and I came across obviously Lysander Spooner, but guys like Stefan Molyneux, Larkin Rose, Jeff Berwick, and yourself. It was from listening to that book that I found you as well. I'm fascinated by what you had to say, as well as your choice in music, of course.
Oh, thank you. Hey, who can argue with Rory Gallagher? I mean, come on. If you can't feel Rory, you're dead. You're dead to me, and you're dead inside.
What about Stevie Ray?
Oh, I got to see Stevie twice. Once with Joe Satriani, and the first time with Jeff Beck. Stevie was the type. He was very much in the vein of Rory Gallagher. He loved to play. He was a great person. I've met and spoken with his brother Jimmy. Yeah, no doubt. Stevie was great.
So, if you could hire a studio for the day and use musicians, say from Robert Johnson onwards, dead or alive, who would be your drummer?
Rory.
The drummer?
Oh, who would be the drummer?
Yeah.
Bonzo. Absolutely Bonzo.
Okay, and the bass player?
Oh, Steve Harris.
And the lead guitarist would be Rory, yeah?
It would have to be a few. It would have to be someone like Rory, Peter Green, Mike Bloomfield.
Peter Green. Nobody beat Peter Green. He was an absolute genius. Love to listen to his stuff. Buddy Guy, I like him as well.
I've seen Buddy 3 times, and I tell you, I listen to Peter Green is that rare musician that connects on such an emotional level. I mean, Mike Bloomfield also, but if you listen to the 1970 live cut of The Letter, where he redid the B.B. King song, I Got a Mind to Give Up Living, it is unbelievably gut-wrenching, the emotion that he puts into that. And I was just, practicing and playing some of the licks to that, and I could play. I mean, it's just it's nothing. It's just a G minor pentatonic. I mean, the riffs aren't hard, but when you've got a guy like that, and I know I've spoken about him before, but he's putting something else into what's being done. It's not just mechanics. And gosh, I swear, it's one of the biggest losses, because Mike Bloomfield kind of went the same way before he died. He was an alcoholic, and it was drugs just ruined it, and that's what happened to Peter Green. But
I saw Peter Green when he came out of his retirement, and he hadn't got that edge. He was rusty, but he was still in. I still enjoyed it.
Well, yeah, I'd love to see Peter Green. It's just the Peter Green from 1966 to 1970 is gone.
Yeah.
I don't mean that to sound like a jerk. It's just the magic that what made him Peter Green is gone, because he did go through shock treatments and whatnot. He was treated horribly in psychiatric care, and it's really sad that to what happened to him, and it's almost like he died. But Peter, I'm glad you've heard, because hey, one of Ireland's finest, Gary Moore, actually recorded with Peter's Les Paul. He bought it from Peter, and
I think Peter gave it to him.
Well, I think that what Gary said in interviews that it was he paid £200 for it.
Right. Okay, I thought it was given to him, but. Yeah, that was a great tribute. I mean, Gary Moore was a genius as well.
I love Gary, and I didn't get to see him, and it was tragic that he died so young. It's just what I'm saying is demonstrated, I think, perfectly, because you can hear Gary do some of Peter's songs. He does Jumping at Shadows, and he does a great job with it. And he also does Need Your Love So Bad, but there's and he's technically brilliant. Love Gary Moore, but he didn't bring the same thing, and he didn't ever have. He just lacked that thing, that very rare quality that Peter had. Still one of my all-time favorite. I love Gary Moore. I don't mean to make it sound like I'm taking anything away. Gary was the man. Yeah. Peter, oh good Lord, yeah, that's rare.
Can we just finish off with just a couple of go back to the legal thing?
Of course.
When you receive a letter through the post that I notice to appear in court, can you challenge that notice at that point?
Yes, and you can do it by let's say an application to quash.
Okay, so you're not answering any charges or anything. You're just going to an application to quash. Could you clarify that?
Yes, quash is a legal process to get off the docket a notice to appear, or a summons, or a subpoena. And so you call it an application to quash. At least you would say like a motion to quash here in the United States court system. And the argument that I would make would be the same as if I was filing an application to dismiss the charge, but since this is just a notice to appear, I would put in there that there isn't any evidence or sufficient evidence to set forth personal jurisdiction, so that there's any legal obligation to comply.
So their first correspondence with you, is it called a written instrument?
Pardon?
The first correspondence that you receive from the courts or the prosecution, do we call that a written instrument?
Well, yeah, it is a written. That's what it is. I wouldn't I've had this on my show. I'll just put for now, I know if you're going to get into this, but it's absolutely not a contract, but it certainly is a written instrument.
Yes, I mean, an instrument is a tool, and a tool, when it works right, sort of gets things in motion, doesn't it? But we want to stop the motion.
We want to make it, yes, we don't want this to escalate. And I always talk about whatever the situation is, especially when the tax man is coming, we don't want this to escalate. It's a little different than in court, but yes, we would say, I would say that the application, or what they send to us, the notice to appear, or what I send back, is a written instrument, because I want to stop this. I'm letting them know, look, my position is this. This is my argument. I don't see any actual facts that would support any claim that that your code applies, because and that there's jurisdiction. That there's no personal jurisdiction here.
Would you ever fill out any of their forms that they send you?
I usually don't, but it depends on what's going on. I know on very, very limited circumstances where they won't accept it if you don't, then we do it. But I always make clear, however we're doing it, wherever it happens to be. So like my application to dismiss, which we use successfully in England, it says right in the first part that we are not appearing, because I discussed this on the show the other day. Appearing is a legal term. It's submitting to jurisdiction. So we say we are not appearing, but participating under threat, duress, and coercion.
Ah, good one. That's really good. I like that one. Right, what was it? So, well, we've already established that, from our point of view, and morally, that the state is a fiction, and its court system is all part of this fiction. Could we argue that the courts are fraudulent right from the beginning?
Of course, absolutely. How are they supported? They force strangers in the community to give them money on the threat of jail, and sometimes so they are part of a criminal organization.
Now we know that, and we can see it logically, but they will not agree with you on that.
We don't, but that's the thing. The way I go about doing it is it doesn't have to come up, and it shouldn't come up. Well, see, because of those underlying facts, that is why they are not able to support their claim that their code applies, because they're just a criminal organization. That's why you have the honesty of Robert Diab, the law professor in Canada. Why he was right. Yeah, it's not based on logic or evidence. Oh, okay, it's a blunt assertion of power. All we have to do is ask them what their what their premise is. Well, so you believe that because I'm physically in Ireland, your laws apply? Well, yeah, of course, they'll tell you that. Now you just have to ask them. Okay, all right. So, what facts, if any, do you rely on to prove that that's actually true? And so, because they are a criminal organization, and is no actual evidence, all you and I have to do is call their bluff, if you will. And we don't ever have to say, well, there is no state. We don't have to say anything like that.
Do we have the choice to ignore them then?
There's going to be consequences most of the time. I choose to not have it escalate. And if you do ignore it, it usually will just be used against you. Where, let's say, for sake of argument, because some judges, hey, they're not all scumbags, because we win an awful lot of stuff. So let's just say, for sake of argument, that you pulled a good judge, but you blew it off the first time. Now you're in there, and he's saying, I'd be sympathetic to you, but why didn't you address this? And we could have gotten this possibly had this resolved already if you hadn't. See, I believe that we should be acting in good faith. We're trying to resolve this. We're not going to make any accusations. We're not going to make an affirmative statements. We're just going to be asking questions. I am here in good faith. If there's evidence to support these charges, I will plead guilty. But I don't see it.
That's the point in your books, and we'll make mention of the books that you've written in the text down below. But you make that point that you've already lost when they start to attack you. And the whole thing is then the whole thing is damage control. From that point on.
And we want to limit. Yeah, we want to limit that amount of damage. Yes, you can get tickets tossed out. I just posted again where someone got ticket tossed out, and the one before that was they got an acquittal. They won a trial. So we've done it both ways, before and after trial, and we've had, unfortunately had to lose and go and get it tossed out on appeal. So we want to limit the damage. We have to look if we're looking at it as activists, and that we have to have the moral high ground. We have to have the high road here, and I personally believe we should be treating others the way we want to be treated. I'm not saying it. It's based on rational, secular, ethics. I don't want to be abused, so to be logically consistent, I don't abuse other people. It hurts me when watching people get abused. I don't want to see that. So I want to extend that to other people. And it's also, selfish. If I'm treating people good, there's less chance they're going to attack me. And we are able to maintain that moral high ground, and they'll be more sympathetic, where a judge may not like the ultimate conclusion. And they've even told me this. I don't like your ultimate conclusion, Mark, but your logic is impeccable. Your argument is good. And that's why I think helps us get so many of these tossed out. If we come in like arrogant SOBs, we start stormtrooping around like William of Orange, and that doesn't work out too well.
So what's the difference between yourself as an anarchist and a sovereign citizen or freeman of the land?
I don't see that government has ever been legitimate, period. I don't argue that it's okay if they have jurisdiction under common law, and that if I've hurt somebody, then they magically have jurisdiction. I argue that based on the facts, that they are men and women forcing strangers to give them money, that they are and always have been criminal organizations, that they've never been legitimate.
So it's morality rather than still remaining within the state, but making sure that the state behaves itself.
No, I don't see that there is a state. I have to, unfortunately, live in most of us, we live in places where they have these criminal organizations. And I'm working towards educating people and having people be skeptical and challenge them and not accept. I mean, I tell people and say, look, you have to assume that everything coming out of a bureaucrat or politician's mouth is a lie. And challenge it. And so whether in and out of court, don't just take someone's word for it. I mean, I don't expect that anyone's going to do. I mean, I do the broadcast 4 hours a week, and people are free to call and challenge me on everything. And I have been challenged a lot. That's what I advocate. I like to see, where they're not using a prison system to pay for these services, because that's where all these problems and abuse, stem from.
I've heard a lot of the free man movement and the sovereign citizen talk about the right to travel. Now, I fully understand your position on you as an anarchist and that there is no legitimate state whatsoever. But should we register our car?
Well, I see that there's definitely a community or society interest in doing that, to solving crimes and think. I believe that with a government, we can get rid of what we presently call government and have those same services. So, fire and stuff like that. And we should have police, but the police won't be on a hierarchy. They won't be, if we have an abusive fire department like in Baltimore, people can just withhold payment, and it'd be easier to get rid of them and hold them accountable. So I do see that there is, like I mentioned, an interest in being able to identify cause, because even in a voluntary society, car theft is still going to be a huge problem, and that's one, I think, good way. You're just not forcing people to do that, but it's in their better interest to do it because their insurance will be less. I mean, it's obviously there's more of a risk for the insurance company to take on if you have no identification numbers on your car, because how the hell are you going to identify if it's stolen? And that's just one example. But.
Yeah, so you got to grit your teeth and just do the sensible thing.
Well, there are certain things that I think, I don't think there need to be passports in a voluntary. If let's say, there was no government in North America anymore, passports are just for political bodies. If people want to freely travel. Yeah. It goes back to what we mentioned before. How is that border enforcement done? And how is it paid for? Oh, they're forcing the community to pay. That's not. There's got to be a better way. And all that, I know we're out of time, but so much of that just deals with racism anyway.
Well, listen, we'll conclude it there, Mark. Thank you very much for joining us. Do really appreciate all that you've got to say, and we'll leave all your details in the description on YouTube so people can follow up on what you say. It's been great to talk to you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun, and we got to talk about Rory Gallagher and Peter Green, so that's always a good time.
It's funny, the three things that you do, your anarchy, your music, and your cuts, that holds my attention. I'll be sending you a Christmas card.
Well, I appreciate that. I've done a lot of genealogy work, and the oldest I can get for my family, my Cullens, Michael Cullen, is his marriage record from 1828, because so many of the records, they happen to be Catholic. Mm-hmm. And so many of the records were destroyed. I mean, how many churches were, for so many years were Catholic churches and, the records destroyed. Mm-hmm. Where I have Sicilian records going back to 1580.
Wow.
1580! And this is for the lay people, this is for, the plebes, the regular people. That's almost unheard of in Europe. Mm-hmm. But we've got it. So, that's why I've learned a lot. I was very disappointed, no offense to you. It's just I found out that my Rogers line, when they came over, it was from Old English Ireland. I'm like, oh, no. Were they Protestant? No. Because my Moriartys were absolutely Catholic. But they came over, the Rogers came into New York, and my Moriarty line originally came in around 1800 from Ireland.
During the famine?
No, it was in 1800.
Oh, before the famine, yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, my Rogers were right after the famine. In fact, my Cullens, now the Cullens from County Clare, they did come over in about 1850, so it was like right in the heart of the famine.
Yeah. Oh, it's some awful history. And again, it's all statism.
Statism and the famine was a lot to do with just basic capitalism, that they were selling a lot of it to the highest bidder.
Ireland was also producing food for the British Navy, and the peasants were only allowed to grow potatoes for themselves.
Yeah, let's not get started on that.
Yeah, okay. We'll be here all night.
Some more hating on the British. Which, hey, real quick, my wife has a relative named Joshua Hawkins, and he was in the papers a few times, and he fought during the Revolution, and he was shot, and in his obituary that it's great we got a copy of, because he was kind of a famous vet, and his dying thing was, do not bury me with anything British, and because a ball, he had been shot in the hip, and they couldn't get it out, so he lived with this, to for like 50 years, and he died. He was fairly advanced. So they made sure that after he died, they cut that ball out.
A piece of lead ball, yeah.
Yeah, don't bury me with anything British. So I can definitely appreciate that. So,
Mark, it's been great to talk to you. We're going to say goodbye now. Thank you very much for joining me.
Oh, you're most welcome.
Okay, God bless. Bye bye.
If it's part of the show, welcome to the show. If you don't know, it's part of the show. Didn't they teach teach you to reach for the stars while opening up the bars and keeping you chained down with mortgage bills and cars. Vaccines for your arms, kids sounding like supercharged, caffeinated hate-filled scars and rage-quit repertoires. No answers for yards, caught up in emotion that's not even yours. Imposter truths like impeccable retards, lined up for your serving of Gish Gallop.